What's up, Raza? What's up, gente? So, I want to talk today and answer the question again. Will Donald Trump um, uh, invoke, that means call out federal troops under what's called the Insurrection Act of 1807? I want you all to think about that. Google it, look it up, AI it, whatever you want to do. It's a serious law that basically, allows him the power to do certain things that that he's not able to do today, any president. And this is important because even prior to the Insurrection Act, you've had presidents trying to do things, and they did do things under what's called emergency powers, which, according to the Constitution, the president does have. But there is a thing called the Posse Comitatus Act. I believe that's 1878 that says, and it forbids the United States government, specifically the president, without the Congress's consent, to put troops, actual troops. I'm not talking about a state national guard. Talking about troops on what's called domestic grounds in the states. We're watching troops out there now. We're watching ICE under a federal program out there now. But we're talking about the actual troops, the ones who are out there, doing stuff, trained to kill. So are the other ones trained to kill. But in this case, the Posse Comitatus Act says the president cannot do that. Well, now under the Insurrection Act, Donald Trump really wants to invoke this. He's got 1,500 soldiers on standby, unit out of Alaska, ready to go into Minnesota, and basically invade the place. And you'll have to suspend all a Bill of Rights, all liberties, and that goes for everybody, not just immigrants, Chicanos, white. You're included in this too, because when this goes into effect, that means everybody loses their rights. So I want our white brothers and sisters out there to think about this. You are going to find yourself in a position where you are not going to have freedom of speech. You think Renee Good was, just a one-off? Nah, you're going to be part of those statistics too, because if you have a gun, if you have guns, if you say something that maybe the government, in this case the administration of 47, doesn't like, then you better expect your own rights to be, crushed, just along with the rest of us. Now, I say this not to scare people, but the truth is, last night his own aide, a guy named Steve Miller, people probably heard of him. This guy is a racist, right wing lunatic. This guy can't even keep his cool. When he's interviewed, he takes so much pleasure in injuring and hurting and turning up the heat on immigrants, on poor people, on those that are vulnerable, those who are not white. The policies you saw in the first administration and even today, those are his. And this guy is out of control. So last night he basically sent out a message to the Minnesota authorities, not just to stand down, but also to surrender. That's wild coming from somebody in the White House, to be doing that. So it shows the amount of arrogance, ignorance, I would say too, because, and maybe not ignorance, maybe they know exactly what they're doing, because we don't know what's in their head, but it really shows arrogance and foolishness, to tell people to stand down and to surrender. That's shocking right there. But let me take you back a couple of days last week when the shooting of the woman in Minnesota occurs, this 37-year-old mother. When that happens, the vice president of the United States made a stupid statement, a dumb statement, and he said that ICE agents have absolute immunity. First of all, there's no such thing as absolute immunity. Under absolute immunity means you could just kill, rape, steal, and basically there's no repercussions. No, there's a thing called qualified immunity, which everybody from law enforcement to, yes, even high school principals and principals at schools have immunity, meaning the law gives you a little bit of leeway because they understand how tough your job is. In the case of cops, qualified immunity doesn't mean they just get to shoot people on sight. That's why it's called qualified. They have to show just cause. They have to show that they were justified in what they're doing. He went to Yale Law School. He's not stupid. He's just putting it out there for everybody to know that ICE agents have a green light to do as they please, to do whatever they want and however they want to, because the administration will have your back. And in the case of January 6, 20, you saw the insurrection that took place in Washington, D.C., when power was supposed to turn over, switch over from Trump to Biden. You saw an insurrection, and you saw Congress trying to do something about it, but the president had every power to basically call in the National Guard to squash it, to stop it. They didn't, so they know what they're doing. And when they got reelected, 47, he pardoned all these insurrectionists who are now out in Minnesota, bumping Ice Ice Baby and talking about how great Donald Trump is and ICE is. You got some fool out there trying to stir people up. He was one of those people that was pardoned. And you got a lot of those right wingers and racists who were pardoned, and they've learned that their president has their back. This president has their back. So when the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, says that ICE agents have absolute immunity, no, there's no such thing. But what he's telling them is, go ahead, do what you want, do what how you want it. We got your back, right? So, heads up, everybody, be careful. We're dealing with some madmen here, some crazy people that we never even hear about, like Stephen Miller, who we do hear about sometimes here and there. People, but at this point, we've heard his name. But there's people behind the scenes who are pulling the strings, who are calling the shots, who are giving the president in the United States, and putting ideas in his head about how great to look and how tough to look by doing certain things, which include killing people, innocent people, including bystanders, and yes, even white people. And again, to all my white allies and friends out there, thank you, comrades. But also to those who think that you are spared, trust me, the Insurrection Act is coming after your guns. The Insurrection Act is coming after your free speech. The Insurrection Act is coming after your freedom of privacy, or right not to have be searched. That's under the Fourth Amendment, right? Your Insurrection Act is coming after your Eighth Amendment, not to be treated with cruel and unusual punishment, or in the case of taking a life, you might lose your life too. So you're not free too. And I encourage anybody out there to start looking at what you're doing, who you're supporting, what you're supporting, I would say too, because the Insurrection Act will be invoked if this president loses it tonight. He's already threatened. He got troops on standby. And be careful to all the organizers, activists, and comrades out there that are fighting, the good fight out there in Minneapolis and Minnesota and elsewhere. Be careful, because definitely if he invokes that, that means all of us, not just them.